Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of What I Watched This Month, the completely original video series where I go over what I watched in a given month. I hate that it's already July. As you may or may not know, I did not do one of these videos back in May. I actually did film it, but I just never found the time to edit it. So I just took the May segment and the June segment, put it together, and I'm calling it What I Watched in June so the algorithm doesn't get confused. If you want to skip over to the June section, there will be timestamps in the description because that's where I'm going to go over the new releases, including Conjuring 3, Quiet Place, Luca, Fast and Furious 9. So with all that being said, here's what I watched in May and June. Next, I checked out The Mitchells vs. the Machine because it was getting an insane amount of unironic praise. And I'm happy to say it did not disappoint. This was a really good movie. It's honestly one of the best made-for-kids animated films I've seen in recent memory. However, while this movie was really good, it does have some of the issues family-friendly animated movies have. How do you do fellow kids type jokes, surface-level drama where people just don't communicate properly, and also lots of melodrama? Nope, not that one. But it's the kind where the plot just kind of comes to a halt so you can have a manufactured emotional moment, but you know the ending's gonna be happy, so let's speed it up a little bit. But those are issues honestly with the genre as a whole, and those gripes besides, this is a truly fantastic movie. Also, I did poke fun at the comedy a little bit, but overall, it's really well done meta humor. Lord and Miller are the kings of meta comedy. So yeah, overall, this was a good flick. Woman in the Window was a new Netflix movie that came out this month, and yikes was this bad. This is a psychological thriller about a woman who's an agoraphobic and claims to witness a murder of a woman who does not exist. The concept is interesting and I had fun watching it until the last 20 minutes, which unfortunately is a spoiler, but wow, that was a special kind of bad. The last 20 minutes of this movie and the twist, so to speak, are so bad that it retroactively ruins whatever redeeming qualities this movie might have had. There is nothing special about this film and the destination is laughable. If you haven't seen this movie yet, don't check it out. It's not worth your time. Moving on to a good movie, I checked out Game Night, which is a movie I actually encourage all of you to watch because it is really good. For some reason, my mind compares this movie to Baby Driver. Are they similar? No, but they are simply just a very well-made good time. This isn't necessarily my ideal kind of humor, but it works for what it's going for. This is an action comedy, and the action is surprisingly very well done. But the core of this movie and what makes it special are the character relationships, especially between the main couple and the main guy and his brother. All of the chaos that ensues over these 90 minutes help these characters evolve, and it's really well done. Overall, I don't have that much to say except it's a good movie and you should check it out. This is an enjoyable film. It's not a deep one. I finally watched that movie where Timothée Chalamet does that dance, also known as Call Me By Your Name, and this is a great movie. However, I do think that there are some genuine flaws with it. Usually when I'm talking about a movie that's this highly praised and I'm not, a big fan of it, I usually blame it on myself that, oh, it's a great movie, but just me, my opinion, I didn't enjoy it as much as others. And while that is the case to some extent, my biggest issue, actual issue with this movie is how the characters fall in love. It truly comes out of the blue. In the end, the father character has this great monologue and talking about how special this relationship was, but I'm just there thinking, they didn't really seem compatible. Regardless, the technical aspects of this movie are amazing. However, second flaw with this movie, it takes its sweet time. I've heard critics praise it for breaking the status quo of the structure of filmmaking or whatever buzzwords critics like that like to throw around. And sure, it does. It takes its time. It's not very momentum heavy, and it doesn't conform to the natural structure of a movie, which is great. I'm all for that. I love movies that just kind of meander sometimes. However, this is a 2-hour, 15-minute movie, and by the hour mark, hardly anything has happened. If you don't want to put the call to action at page 15, fine, break that rule, I don't care, but have something happen. But once again, the technical aspects and the scenery and the sets and the acting and even the writing are all on point and top notch. So I enjoyed it, for the technical aspects, but I also enjoyed it just as a person who likes emotional stories. Next, I watched 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri because it was a movie that I knew the title of but knew nothing about. It turns out this movie is about a woman who has a daughter who was abused and murdered, and there was no charges put forward, no arrests made, and she puts up 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri calling attention to this fact. This was a fantastic and riveting movie. In my Letterboxd review, I wrote something along the lines of silly of me to assume I was mentally stable enough to watch this because man, it caught me off guard. I was expecting a drama, but I was not expecting it to be this brutal. Everything about this movie is brutal. The writing does not hold back. This takes place in a very racist town and every character lets you know that. The plot is always moving. Something is always happening. There's always some semblance of tension and fear of what's gonna happen next. Because that's the thing, you have no idea what's gonna happen next. There is something that happens at the 50-minute mark that left me dumbfounded. I have no idea how to talk about this one without spoiling it, but just, they went for it. That's all I say. They went for it. And the monologue that encompasses this scene, oh, I was not ready for that. That was, geez, this movie. It's 2 hours of nonstop emotion from a variety of different characters for different reasons, and usually when I'm describing a movie like that, there's not like a plot, it's just kind of stuff happening. But what makes this movie really special is it has that just raw emotion for the entire runtime, but also a nice and engaging plot to back it up. Put those two things together, you get a really special movie. Next, I have a big announcement. I am finally a film fan, like a real one. And you're probably thinking, David, weren't you always a film fan? No, I have not seen Pulp Fiction. Everybody knows you cannot be a film fan unless you've seen Pulp Fiction. I have now seen Pulp Fiction, now I am a film fan. I don't make the rules, okay? People with Pulp Fiction posters make the rules. Every single president had a Pulp Fiction poster. In all seriousness, I finally watched Pulp Fiction and I am so happy I did, and I'm so happy I thoroughly loved this movie. Of course, I was going to appreciate it for being Tarantino's masterpiece, but I genuinely loved and enjoyed this movie from start to finish. He enjoyed it too. Right from the opening scene, you learn that the dialogue is going to carry this movie, and I am so okay with that. But it's more than just snappy dialogue, it's the way that the plot unfolds and intersects, and the way that small mundane moments are put on this grand scale, and moments that should usually earn tension are just treated as something normal. It's that juxtaposition that makes a scene such as Sam Jackson eating a Big Kahuna burger so insanely riveting and one of the best scenes I have ever seen in my life. Like I said in my Pulp Fiction reaction video, I'm not sure if this is an A+ or it gets the Toby grade, because while it is fantastic, the Toby movies are ones that are very close to my heart, and I'm not sure how close this movie is to my heart yet, but give it a couple months and maybe another watch, and I think maybe it will be as amazing as this thing. I'm gonna move on now because the last thing you need is a 16-year-old boy telling you that Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece. Next, I watched The Conjuring because I'm getting ready for The Conjuring 3, which looks really interesting. And this was simply just a highly entertaining and well-made horror movie. One that doesn't have much meat on it, but still really well made and really entertaining. My biggest issue with this movie is that I truly don't have anything more to say. It is just that. It is an entertaining movie that I recommend. Nothing else about it. You take a horror film like Hereditary, which I'm still unsure if I love that movie or hate it, but you take a movie like that, there is so much to dissect in that movie. Not with this one. It doesn't discredit it, it's still an entertaining movie. Go watch it on Netflix, watch the third one. I'm gonna watch the third one, but that's all it is. It's an entertaining movie. Let's move on. Next, I watched the Shakespearean masterpiece, Army of the Dead. Holy crap, this movie was too much fun. The plot is insanely simple. There's a zombie apocalypse, Las Vegas is going to be bombed, there is money there, go get the money, you get some of the money. There is like 15 minutes of this movie where it's slow, the rest from start to finish is non-stop fun. There's some character drama, but there's no real big character arcs. It's not trying to be anything more than just a fun zombie movie, and I'm here for it. I haven't seen many zombie movies, so I can't really compare it, but this is probably my favorite. My only issue with this movie, besides, just some dumb moments and the overall silly nature of this movie, but that's fine, I love that, is the ending. The ending is like genuinely frustrating, and I mean that. It is genuinely frustrating. Just as a human with emotions, not as a film critic or a film enthusiast, just as someone who has emotions. It's frustrating the way this movie ends. I really can't say anything else besides that, because if I say anything else, I will indeed spoil the ending, so that's all I can really say. The ending is frustrating. Take that as you will. The rest is awesome. Also, Dave Bautista is out here proving himself to be more than just comic relief, which is great. He had a great role in Blade Runner 2049, and here he carried this movie, so happy to see this man thriving. Okay, I'm gonna go watch some more movies, and I will see you in a couple seconds.
2 weeks later.
And we are back. I checked out 3 really good movies. I watched the 2 Jump Street movies, 21 and 22, naturally. 21 Jump Street was amazing. It's honestly, I can see it becoming one of my favorite movies. On a surface level, it's not only just a highly entertaining movie with really effective comedy and action, it has some clever commentary, and it also effectively builds up tension. It will be exciting, you're having a good time, you're enjoying yourself, and then just like that, with a little line of dialogue, it will be like, oh yeah, that's right, this is not a good situation for the characters. This is a lie that they're living. And like I said, it has some clever commentary as well. It's about these 2 grown men who are cops, and they have to infiltrate a high school and pretend to be high schoolers, but because it's taking place in 2012, lots of the tropes that they went through aren't really necessarily the case anymore. And that's something that's not touched on enough in high school movies. These tropes that high school movies have implemented are not necessarily true, especially in the 2010s. Reading comic books and watching Star Wars and the MCU is not something that people are really getting bullied for necessarily nowadays. Being a surface level liberal and caring about the environment is also considered cool. And seeing Jonah Hill's character thrive in this high school setting and then Channing Tatum's character struggle with it because he is just kind of a smooth-brained bully. It's all really clever, entertaining stuff, and it leads to nice paradoxes, and overall it's just a good time. 22 Jump Street, on the other hand, is good, but definitely not as good. The standout in this movie for me is the meta humor. It has some really funny jokes about it being a sequel, and it's very self-aware that it's a sequel, and there's lots of talks about, you know, it having a higher budget and stuff like that. It's very self-aware and fourth wall breaking. That I really enjoyed, and once again, the dynamic between these two actors is very good. And their brother-like relationship, which is always described as like a romantic relationship, is really funny. There's this great scene with this therapist. However, this movie is almost 2 hours long, and you really do feel the runtime. It does not need to be this long. Because the movie drags on for so long, some of these wacky moments that are supposed to be over the top and on the nose end up feeling eye-rollable instead. However, for every 3 gags that don't land, there's one that's just perfect, and that's how comedy usually works. Overall, this was a very respectable and fun movie. I had a great time watching it. I was never like annoyed watching this movie. But the first one is miles better in my opinion. Definitely a movie that I'm going to be rewatching a lot and showing to my friends. It's going to become a David classic. I can already feel it. Once again, the second one is good, it just has some more issues in my opinion. Next, I watched Bo Burnham's Inside. It's a new comedy special on Netflix, and it's not an over-exaggeration to say that this is one of my favorite things that I've ever seen. Bo is one of my favorite artists. He does everything, so I'll call him an artist. He's one of my favorite artists working today. His film 8th Grade is one of my favorite movies ever, definitely in my top 50. His vines are some of the best vines I've ever seen, and he's just an overall talented person who I can relate to and in some ways see myself in him. And while I'm not a really smart and talented musician or comedian, the way he utilizes the internet in a very just childlike way to boost himself into the mainstream and to be a respected artist is so commendable and awesome to see. But this special not only captured so many emotions and frustration about the pandemic, but also what it means to be a creative person in the creative process, but just the fact that it's pure Bo Burnham. Like, this is a project that nobody else could make except Bo Burnham. It is so uniquely his own. It is genuinely a masterpiece. I knew this was going to be something special around the 20-minute mark when a sock puppet said, "Neoliberal fascists are destroying the left." From that moment on, I was like, yes, this is a masterpiece created by God. I only have really 2 issues with this, and one of them is that it does overstay its welcome for a little bit too long. If maybe 20 minutes were cut off, this could be easy 5 stars. It's still as amazing as Toby, it's just not a 5-star piece. And second, there are connecting themes and messages and ideas, of course, and the last song brings it all together, but at certain points it just feels random. And it's only after I think about it or rewatch certain clips and songs and skits and watch some videos on it, it kind of all comes together. So maybe if it was a little more clearly structured, that could have been great. And you see in the special, he is confused as well. Well, I'm actually not sure about that, but all I can say just from watching it, it does feel kind of random, and maybe he felt the same way too. Overall themes and ideas, but it just goes from this skit to this skit to this skit with, you know, very little connective tissue. The ideas are there and they all kind of connect, but it's not a natural flow of progression, I guess you could say. Anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed this special. Like I said, it is one of my favorite things that I've ever watched. I'm not sure if I could put it in my top 50 or 60, but it's definitely in my top 100, which is saying a lot. The fact that this guy in his apartment made this masterpiece and is in my top 100 favorite things that I've ever seen is just so cool and inspiring. Hopefully I've given you some motivation to check it out. You really, really should. I'm currently filming this on Memorial Day. I have the day off, so I'm going to go try to watch another movie, and I will talk to you in a couple seconds.
So I'm hopeful, yes I am hopeful for today.
Okay, David from July is back, and the first movie I watched in June was The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, which I was really excited for, and unfortunately it was kind of a massive letdown. Was it entertaining? Kind of. I can't even be definitive on that answer because I'm gonna be honest, I was bored for a good portion of this movie. There was a few effective jump scares, but the rest is just so heavily CGI and you can see the jump scares coming from a mile away. It wasn't that intense and engaging of a viewing experience. The first one was far superior in how it built up tension. And the thing that made this movie interesting was the trial. How are you gonna convince a jury that the devil made someone commit a crime? Unfortunately, that part is kind of glossed over. They don't focus on that, so yes, it's based on a true story, even though it's not. There is so much fabrication in this movie, which is fine. I was obviously not expecting this to be, you know, a documentary, but the one part that they could have really focused on, they didn't, and that was the interesting part. So instead, the entire movie just feels like an uninteresting side mission. Overall, this movie was highly disappointing. Next, I went to the movie theaters for the first time in over a year and saw A Quiet Place 2 with my friends. Just that experience alone was awesome, and the movie was pretty good too. Was I disappointed by this movie? Kind of. I didn't have crazy high expectations. The first Quiet Place movie is not one that I hold close to my heart. I think that's a fantastic movie, but it's not one of my personal favorites. I don't think it's in my top 100. This movie does not butcher the legacy of the first one or anything. The biggest problem with this movie is that it feels kind of inconsequential. It's called Part 2, but this is mild spoilers. It's literally just the next day. It's like if Last of Us Part 2 was just the next day of Ellie and Joel's adventure after the end of the first game. Besides the stakes being lower than I expected and wanted to see, it is still, like, technically a fantastic movie. John Krasinski is one of my favorite persons, period, and just the fact that he's directing and doing such a fantastic job at making these hits is so cool to see. Every single performance in this movie blew me away, especially the two little kids, especially the little girl. She is so fantastic. And you know, I brought up a Last of Us comparison because it does kind of remind me of The Last of Us, especially the dynamic between these two characters. It's very much Ellie and Joel, which I always love. Overall, this is a really well-made and entertaining film. I had a blast watching it. It was very easy to watch and enjoyable to watch. I was never annoyed while watching it, but just overall, it's not something I can be personally attached to or say I loved that movie just because of how inconsequential the whole thing felt. I really hope the third one does something crazy. Next, I finally watched In the Heights, and this movie was just made for me to enjoy. Let's get out of the way like my one issue with this movie, and that is the pacing / runtime. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes and really does not need to be that long. Now, I never listened to the original cast recording from the musical, so I wasn't attached to any of the songs, so I personally wouldn't mind if some of them were cut out, because after a while it does kind of get annoying how they just keep singing literally every 4 minutes. Obviously, it's a musical. I'm not saying that's a flaw, but it's just a lot. And it's unfortunate as well because these actors are so talented. I'm really invested in this real life dialogue that they're having, and then when it's interrupted by a song, it just feels a little abrupt. However, the music is fantastic. There's only like 3 songs in here that I didn't really care for. The rest, I fully appreciate it and respect. Lin-Manuel Miranda is an incredible writer and one of my favorite artists. But more than anything, this movie is just emotion packed. It is such a simple story with so many relatable characters and emotions, but the way that it's really elevated through the music makes it something truly special. It truly is a pick-me-up, feel-good film, and I do think the runtime does hurt it just ever so slightly. I keep talking about the runtime because that's really the only criticism I have to say. Everything else is so great and so much fun and so heartwarming. I absolutely recommend you guys check this movie out. If you like musicals. If you don't like musicals, I don't think this is gonna change your mind. Next, I watched the animated version of Call Me By Your Name, Calamari by Your Name. So yeah, I watched Luca, and I kept hearing like jokes like, you know, Calamari by Your Name. I'm like, okay, it's a joke, right? It's a joke. No. This film was cute. I will be a big defender of this film. Pixar wasn't making a sequel or trying to do some mind-blowing emotional experiment. It was just a straightforward, simple story about friendship, love, and finding yourself. There's definitely a part of it that doesn't have that Pixar magic because it truly is very, very simple. In that simplicity, it's able to thrive and do something special and just be a cute and entertaining movie. As far as what the relationship between these two little boys is, it doesn't matter. I know the jokes are hilarious. I made one. Calamari by Your Name is one of the greatest things I've ever heard. And it definitely has Call Me By Your Name vibes, but at the end of the day, the relationship can mean anything you want it to. The struggles that these characters go through can be an allegory for really any kind of social commentary, so. Oh wait, they released it in June, didn't they? And the last thing I watched this month was Fast and Furious 9, also known as just F9. The titles for these movies are also really bizarre. It took a global pandemic for me to see one of these movies. I've never seen a Fast movie before Fast 9. I didn't watch any in preparation to see Fast 9. I did not want to give these movies my time and money, but I wanted to go to the movie theaters again. I had my friend over yesterday, so yeah, I watched Fast 9. And it's only because there was a global pandemic. If it was not for a global pandemic, I would have died never seeing a Fast and Furious movie. It is an irrational hatred that I have, but I genuinely hate these movies. I hate thinking about them. I hate when I see them on TV. I have no interest to watch them. But because I wanted to go to the movie theaters, I saw Fast 9, and oh my god, it was beautiful. For all the memes that I was hearing about this movie, I was expecting Vin Diesel to throw cars like a football, and then I was expecting John Cena to like kick it back into Vin Diesel. I was expecting something truly stupid, and while I wasn't getting exactly that, it is really stupid. They go into space dressed up like minions. This movie is the definition of stupid. However, did I have fun watching this? Yes. I was surprised how much heart this movie had. There is a nice little family dynamic going on, which carried this movie for me. The biggest problem with this movie, besides it being stupid because I just knew it was going to be stupid, so I can't, criticize it for, oh, that broke the laws of physics. No one cares. However, the biggest problem this movie has, in my opinion, is it just throws so much at the screen, and the stakes they're not low in the terms of, like, if you write them on a piece of paper, those aren't low stakes, but because it's a Fast and Furious movie and clearly they're not going to kill off Vin Diesel because that's their star, nothing is going to happen. So they're obviously not about to kill off Vin Diesel, so stuff is just happening, and by the third act, this happens with so many action movies for me. That's why I'm not an action movie fan. I like some action movies, but overall, I don't like watching action movies because by the third act, when you know that your main characters are gonna be safe, it just gets boring. And it's just so ridiculous. How is a car flying in space while the dudes flying it are dressed up like minions? How is that boring? It's boring because when you throw so much stuff at the screen and you establish that the characters are practically invincible, nothing matters. That is where I think the movie going overboard actually hurts the movie. The rest, go crazy. Let's take the cars to Mars for all I care. And there you have it. That is what I watched in May and June. As always, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And if you enjoyed this video, consider giving a like. I am on summer vacation, but I will be taking some summer classes and just overall, just enjoying life because things are open again and I'm just gonna go do stuff. So I can't promise to be on the YouTube grind this summer, but I will try my best to get out videos to you guys and just stay active on this platform because I do love making videos, talking about movies, and connecting with you guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. May the force be with you.